Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman?
Mr. Weedman?
How the hell are you?
Doing great.
I know why.
Why?
Because we just got back from a little R&R.
Yeah, we did. Finally. Finally got some free time.
Yep. Hey, everybody out there in the world. Hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. We're about to get normal. And Mrs. Weedman picked the strain this time. What'd you pick, Mrs. Weedman?
I picked Sour Pooh from Big Earl's Grow, and it is amazing. I picked it because when I opened the jar to choose a strain, the smell said, "Smoke me." It smelled so good. It smelled like the color purple. I don't know why. That's what came to mind. It smelled like purple bubble gum, but it has just a tutti fruity smell. And I smoked it last night, and it was really good.
I smoked it with you last night. Yes,
Yeah.
it was very good. So, and you
Let's
picked it again
smoke
for
it
tonight
again.
for a reason. So,
Yeah.
thanks, Big Earl, as always.
Thanks, Big Earl.
Yeah, we love it. And we got back from a little R&R. We went away, Mrs. Weedman and I, to a place that we hold dear in our heart because we've been going there since our 25th wedding anniversary. And it's up in Wisconsin, and Mrs. Weedman loves Wisconsin. And
I do.
It's just a very quaint cabin that we go to with a nice lake, and we get to rent the pontoon boat. So we spent 3 days on the pontoon boat.
We sure did.
And we found out, we already knew Yuki was a water dog. She loves the water. But we found out she likes to sit in a tube
Yeah, she sat in a river rafting tube.
and just floated around.
She loved it.
And just floated on the lake for a minute.
And she learned how to swim because before that she only liked to be in water that she could walk in. And a couple times she got in a little deeper and then realized that she could swim. And then she was like this sweetest little thing, like doo-doo-doo, just
deepest she's
cruising
ever
around
been.
like a little
Just
duck.
her head was sticking out.
Oh my God, it was so cute. She just, yeah, it was very sweet. She loves it.
She was very nice. Her dog paddle was very sweet.
Yeah. Very
She had a
gentle.
very nice, gentle dog paddle. And it was funny because she went a little bit deeper than I think she was ready for the first time. And she got a little...
Then she had some crazy dog paddling.
Yeah, for a minute. But then
Some doggy
she got back to the rhythm, and she was like... She had to get used to it.
Yeah.
The stinker, though, did not want to come back in the boat.
No, she did not.
Did not want to come back in the
She
boat.
wanted to stay out there. And then all day, if we were back in the house, any moment we were back in the house, she just sat at the door like, all right, when are we going back on that boat? She loves to be outside.
She's an outside dog.
She likes car rides. She likes parks.
She likes boats.
Just playing water.
Yes, water. But she does love the boat. Not even being afraid at all.
Yeah.
And the other thing was...
And, yeah,
we
you're going to
got-
say Miss Gwen.
No, not Miss Gwen.
What?
She actually jumped off the
Yeah, she
front
jumped off
and
the
the
boat.
back without me having to pick her up and bring her in.
She jumped into the water for the first time.
It was great.
I think everybody on the lake could hear her squealing because she was on like the deck of the pontoon boat at the front, like roar, 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 getting louder and louder because she wanted to jump in so badly. And she's kind of running back and forth at the front of the boat, howling and crying. And we're like, just jump in.
Yes.
She finally did it.
Yes.
It was great.
Why don't you light that bowl up? Because
Okay.
we still haven't smoked yet.
No.
Because we got so excited about talking about Yuki and her trip in the water that we forgot to smoke that Sour Pooh. But also Gwen, our grand dog, I guess you want to call
Yeah.
her.
She came up
And-
for the day.
Yes.
Hang on, Mr. Weedman. I'm having a second hit.
And Polly and Shoddy, our producer, came up. And Gwen, it was her first time on the boat and on a boat ever.
On a boat, yeah.
And now she's been in water before, but not like this, like being like up
In
to
a
her.
lake.
Up
She's
to
been
her.
on rivers.
Yes.
When they lived in Seattle. She's
Yes.
been on river hikes and things like that, but she's never been off land on a boat. And she adapted. She
Loved
just
it.
loved it. She was sleeping and she was, well, I didn't get to see her in the water. Mr. Weedman took them out before I got on the boat. So it was cool, though. It was just cool. The dogs were happy.
Yes, they were having a lot of fun in the water, a lot of fun on the boat, and they got to. I enjoyed the experience because it's like watching little kids the first
Mm-hmm.
time going on a boat. So, but it was an amazing trip. Good food, good weed,
Good company.
good company. We smoked a lot of weed.
We smoked a lot of weed.
We did. We smoked.
great.
We had Sunday to ourselves, and we were on the boat, and we anchored up along like a shallow area where you can walk into 2 feet of water. We always anchor this little area because Yuki likes it, and we had a joint of GG4, and you and I smoked that almost the whole thing,
Yeah.
and we just laid on basically on the 2 front seats, and we just laid out and didn't move for like 2 hours.
And I got in one of the river rafts and
Yeah.
floated around at the
Yeah, you
back.
did.
And that was, oh my Lord, it was great.
I
I
got-
mean, we really haven't had a summer getaway. We have had so much going on with work and our business and 8 decades, podcasting,
It was
medical
nice.
stuff. It was just so nice to have a real
break.
weekend break.
Yes, it was nice to go live for the day and enjoy some life for a second. So as I say it all the time, go out there and enjoy life. You need to go out there and enjoy some life.
That's right. Be sure to squeeze it in,
Yep.
even if it's a day
That's
or
it.
an hour. Squeeze in some fun.
Time for you. You ready to get the show started, Mrs. Weedman?
I'm ready.
Let's
ready.
do this. A dad of 2 and smokes some weed, and he likes cannabis better than prescriptions, and that he has in his medicine cabinet. And growing up, he was very terrified of weed because of the DARE program. And officers used to visit the school. I was a child of the DARE program. Mrs. Weedman was a product of the DARE program, so it was always drilled in your head about drugs, right? This dad lives in Maine where cannabis is legal and consumes it regularly now. And he's a dad of 2 small children, and it makes him be more present. So he was 10 years old when he met the first DARE officer. I had Officer Brady come to my school. Flat top cop. Oh, wait, sorry. I vividly remember his imposing, portly stature, black cop boots, and a close to the scalp buzz cut that screamed, "I peaked in middle school." Smoking one of these, he said, pulling a prop joint from his pocket, is the equivalent of smoking 10 whole packs of cigarettes. You could start on this, and you're heading down a bad path in life. His message was clear. Weed made you dumb. Weed was a gateway drug. Weed shaved years off your life and flattened you out like a cartoon steamroller. Officer Tim was one of the many DARE officers around the country who spread their propaganda to impressionable young kids like the dad in this article, instilling in them a decades-long disdain and fear for the plant that I can now legally order to my door like pizza. 26 years later, I'm a proud consumer of cannabis and father of 2 kids. Here's what happened. Baby steps. I wasn't one of those cool, straight-edge guys, but one who consistently questioned and mocked people who smoked weed or drank beer. In college, I succumbed to the peer pressure that I'd skirted my whole life and found weed to be underwhelming. Maine legalized medicinal cannabis back in 1999, becoming the only 5th U.S. state to embrace the controversial plant. It would be another 17 years before Maine residents over 21 could enjoy weed recreationally. I moved to vacation land with my wife in 2020 following the birth of our beautiful pandemic baby. Moving to a new town and a new state and a new child is a trying enough experience for any person, let alone a new family amid a pandemic. While I wouldn't understand the extent of the psychological fallout from the isolation, fear, and uncertainty of COVID-19 with the infant and a healing wife, weed allowed me to look at my life differently. It helped with my anxiety. Marijuana is classified as a Schedule I drug with heroin, acid, peyote, and methamphetamines. This stance on weed puts it in a category unlike typical pharmaceuticals like Lexapro or Wellbutrin, meaning it can't get used for medication on the federal level. I hit a wall with SSRI, feeling that all too typical vague numbness punctuated by a moment of extreme anxiety. Serendipity struck when I wandered into my first dispensary, a treasure trove of concentrates, edibles, flowers, and tinctures. Weed helps in ways prescribed drugs don't. There are no Lexapro dispensaries where you can chat up the pill tender purchasing SSRI-laced cupcakes. Pharmaceuticals work behind the scenes in ways people without depression, anxiety, or ADHD, or in my case, all 3, have a hard time imagining. The side effects can be crushing. Zombification is a common complaint in which the world just becomes less interesting. One puff of sativa-dominant strain can scratch the itch in a way that invigorates my mind and boosts my mood without any side effects. I treat my cannabis like a prescription. I keep it in my medicine cabinet, out of reach for my children, never in a place to disrupt their lives. I try to stick to low THC drinks, pills, gummies, and strains that won't cloud my judgment. I love playing with my daughter. I've stacked magnetiles with her while drinking a beer. I've stacked magnetiles with her after my morning coffee and Adderall, and I've stacked the very same magnetiles with her while drinking a weed-infused drink. The clarity and calm I feel from a buzz of THC, or again any other legal substance, help me appreciate the girl in front of me without ruminating on the introversial thoughts that have followed me around since childhood. Now I know where to find the strains I can tolerate in a form that won't disrupt the lives of my family. That's a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Go, Dad.
Go, Dad.
Legal cannabis leads to healthier states, Mrs.
Yeah.
Weedman. Tell us about
that.
it.
What happens after a state fully legalizes marijuana? Well, a new study shows legal cannabis leads to healthier states, at least when it comes to mental disorders. Over 59 million Canadians and Americans have some form of mental illness. It has become one of the most pressing health issues in both countries, and citizens are struggling with responses. Despite the doom and gloom from some areas, states that have legalized weed not only have happier citizens, but gain more tax revenue and have fewer drunk drivers. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan, who had made major effects during his governorship to reduce funding and enlistment for California mental institutions, pushed a political effort through the U.S. Congress to repeal most of the Mental Health Systems Act. The Mental Health Systems Act was considered landmark legislation in mental health care policy. The repeal led the way to the homeless and mental health crisis that we are seeing today. This study finds in the early years following states' adoption of legal marijuana, there was a 37% decrease in mental health treatment admissions. Huge. The results are driven by people under 65 and by both Black and white individuals. There are also significant decreases in Medicaid-funded treatment admissions, with a much smaller and statistically insignificant effect for non-Medicaid admissions. Data also revealed a 37% reduction in admissions to mental health facilities, leading to cost savings all around and better patient outcome, more importantly, in my opinion. The CDC has deemed the growing prevalence of mental health disorders and suicides a serious public health problem. So it would seem this is a positive outcome for states, healthcare systems, and the public alike. In 2020, among adults aged 18 and older who had any mental illness in the past year and a perceived unmet need for services, 30% reported not receiving care because their because their health insurance did not cover any mental health services or did not pay enough for mental health services. This number was similar for those with serious mental illnesses. Medical marijuana is a safe and more cost-effective way to help people. People are turning to cannabis rather than addictive opioids, which have caused such misery. Respected research has shown cannabis and medical marijuana offer benefits, and at the very least, it's better than alcohol for the human body and brain. Mental illnesses are common. It is estimated that 1 in 5 U.S. adults live with a mental illness. Mental illnesses include many different conditions that vary in degree of severity, ranging from mild to moderate to severe. It seems the federal government should use the data to evaluate and push for more legalization. That's the end of that. But I think this person is very right.
Yeah.
I mean, those are huge numbers. That's not, a 5% change. That's huge numbers.
Big numbers.
People are finding something to help them cope and function.
Better quality of life.
Better quality of life.
Isn't that what we all want?
Yep.
So next is, though, being a functional stoner, though, is that a myth or reality? What do you think, Mrs. Weedman?
A functional stoner?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's a reality. I think I might be a functional stoner.
You are.
No, because I don't know. Is there like a golden rule that a stoner is someone who smokes all day? Because I still don't smoke all day.
No.
But I smoke every day.
Right.
Or consume some way. Usually smoke and edible.
And you every once in a while,
I'm a stoner.
You take a hit of your pen during the day or here and there. I mean, you might.
Yeah.
Just because you don't smoke from the time you wake up from the time you go to bed doesn't mean you're not a stoner. You enjoy cannabis because it helps you with a better quality of life.
Yes, it does.
So being functioning, though, it's like to get absolutely baked and attend everything from a client pitch meeting or a funeral.
That would be interesting.
I know.
Going to a funeral stoned.
Snoop Dogg sang "Smoke weed every day" in his famous 2000 song, and he meant it. He smokes up to 150 joints on a given day.
No way. I still don't. 150 joints.
So that's what it says here.
He must just have them lit all day long. He might not even be, he's puffing on it every once in a while.
I don't know.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of weed. And I know he's been smoking for a very long time.
Like,
but I know a lot of people that smoke for a very long time and don't smoke.
Wait, if you're awake for like 15 hours, he's smoking a joint an hour.
Yeah.
Every hour.
No.
Every waking hour.
No, more than that. He's smoking.
He's probably awake 16 hours a day.
15 hours is not, that would only be 15 joints. He's smoking 150 joints in a day.
He's smoking 10 joints an hour.
There you go.
Shit. How is that even possible? There's no way. He's sharing with a lot of people.
So anyway, a functioning stoner can really be defined in two ways technically. One is the stoner who smokes up through the day, spacing the high much like their willingness to live. The second is the stoner who needs a joint ready before undertaking any task. From the minutest task, like jogging, to the most important life-altering events like a job interview.
Ooh, I don't know if I could do that.
The fact that marijuana use leads to a sedentary behavior has already been debunked by science. In fact, in some cases, people who get stoned prefer getting out and doing things more instead of just being set in one place like a rock. So now that the argument is out of the window, what are the pros and cons of smoking weed like popping candy? The benefits. For a lot of stoners, getting high helps them get into the zone and hyper-focus on one particular task that needs their attention the most. People who smoke the sativa strain of marijuana have more energy and feel creative boosts. Indica, on the other hand, is more relaxation. Not always true with sativas and indicas and hybrids. You have to know what other terpenes and everything that's in there also. So I'll call that out a little bit, but somewhat correct. You can keep your daily anxiety and those pesky analysis thoughts at ease by nursing a joint. This is the state in which most artists would love you to consume their content, to be honest. The drawbacks. The flip side of focusing on something too hard is that you tend to forget other basic shit like breakfast or a shower. The munchies, while welcome, can lead to unnecessary eating and stomach bugs when you tend to come down from the high. Stoner breath, much like smoker breath, is a thing, and your clothes and your fingers will end up smelling like you were in a farm burning literal weeds. The long-term effects of weed on your brain are still being debated, but research also points to the fact that it is reversible, again based on how much damage has already happened, and such cases are far in between. What do functional stoners feel? Let's read what some functional stoners say. I smoke a joint when I wake up around 7 a.m. By the time I leave, I've made another one, and I usually smoke it on the way to work around 10:30 a.m. So if someone's smoking like a cigarette, it's like they're smoking cigarettes to them, you know? I work in advertising at an MNC, and I largely have creative designs or ideas to make or get made. Then I smoke a joint in my car around 2:30, work some more, and roll one as soon as I reach home around 6 p.m. Then I chill, meet friends, and smoke up some more. Then it's dinner time, and I go to bed, reading or watching something, rinse and repeat. It's really hard for me to focus or sit still. Weed helps me sit still and focus. Music sounds much better. I'm not aggressive as a person. I'm not able to tolerate this fucking heat in Delhi. This person's from India. Slightly better if I'm stoned. Food tastes nicer. I'm not as anxious. What else could be compressed? A ball of anxiety or maniac energy. Ask for real. I started using pot when I was 24. In the beginning, it was fun experience. Soon it became something I would heavily depend on for the next 4 to 5 years. I started going to therapy specifically to deal with this because I realized that I didn't like doing anything without being high. But I do not do anything with full focus and attention. I figured that I was sorely lacking a purpose, wasn't working on any aspects of my health, and struggled to do anything socially. It didn't involve friends coming over to get stoned. It's been over a year now, and I've got it under control, and I'm way more active physically and mentally. I do use pure CBD oil when I have body pains or occasional trouble sleeping, but it's always my last resort approach. So this person had just used it and too much. So it happens. So I'm trying to be both, because there is people out there in the world that have used cannabis and don't use it anymore.
Right.
You know, and there's people that use cannabis, they need it medically. There's people that like it recreationally. There's people that need it, like the first person I read, from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep. So let's read another. I think for people who, like me, have borderline ADHD, being stoned really helps. I have a joint and a cup of coffee in the morning around 9 and do the same in the evening around 4. It helps with my concentration and decreases my hyperactivity of walking around the house or getting distracted over nothing. If I'm stoned and I have work, I'm not getting up till I'm done. Weekends are different for me, right? Mrs. Weedman, we smoke a lot more on the weekend.
We smoke during the day on the weekends.
Yeah, and like,
but on work days,
Monday through Thursday, I would say I get my work done and I get the reward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of thing. You know, I don't need it during the day when I'm working. You know, some people do. It helps them concentrate. There's
days where I microdose during the day, or at some point during the day, I'll hit a pen, or I'll have a 2.5 milligram edible.
Right.
It just depends on the day.
Yeah.
What I'm doing with work.
And some handy tips to not just look an obvious junkie while going about your day. Sanitize and deodorize. About stoner breath and making sure you're just fresh and clean. Use eye cooling drops, not just for red eye, but to keep your eyeballs from drying in general. Edibles are not for you if you plan to function throughout the day. Some people, it puts puts them out of commission. It's true. Start low and go slow. Hydrate and eat on time. If you truly manage to curb the munchies, you will emerge victorious. Looking high all the time does have its benefits. If your eyes are heavy all the time, they can't tell what your sober self looks like. Seriously, though, much like most things in life, try moderation and you're okay. Pretty good article. You know, I mean, I know, I've worked with and know so many functional stoners, burners, and potheads. I mean,
and a lot of them you would never know that they were even consuming because they've just built, their
endocannabinoid system is now so leveled and so active with the cannabinoids and the terpenes and the flavonoids and the esters that it's just part of their everyday life, and their body is now, to me, they're one with it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's their medication to where their body is enjoying it, and it needs it to help them with any ailments they have. Mm-hmm. So, I to each his own. I can't.
And some people don't even think of it as a medicine. No. They just enjoy it. Maybe I know plenty of people who smoke that don't consider it medicine or don't talk about it as medicine.
Weed.
It's just weed.
It's just
and
weed.
They love it.
Yeah.
They don't really think about much more than that.
Right.
I know the strains I like. I know how I want to consume it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to consume it all day long.
100%. Why neurodivergent people are self-medicating with weed? This is a really good one. And this is from the UK. But we didn't do this international news because it was a really nice article. I thought it deserved more. And Mrs. Weedman really likes this one. So go ahead, Miss Weedman.
27-year-old Eve started self-medicating with cannabis at the age of 19, shortly after receiving an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis. Autism makes it very difficult for me to express my feelings, and I have a very low tolerance for discomfort or frustration. Cannabis helps me calm myself down and feel more relaxed in my body, she tells Dazed. I struggle with anxiety and sensory issues too. Noise, light, touch, and my ability to tolerate sensory input is a direct link to how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis. Also, having bipolar disorder, it's very easy for my mind to get away from me. When I'm smoking, it slows down negative thoughts, and I have more time to rationalize with myself. She's not alone. 1.8 million people in the UK smoke weed to treat their health issues. The number of people using weed to self-medicate is rising, too, up 29% since 2019, with Brits spending roughly $3.57 billion a year on cannabis for health reasons. It makes sense. Cannabis helps people with improved attention, emotion regulation, concentration, and executive functioning, although sometimes I can challenge some of those things, right? Well, it can also reduce anxiety and sleep problems, all of which are very common symptoms in neurodiverse people. Cannabis has its roots in medicine, says Verena von Fetten, the co-founder of Gossamer, a cannabis lifestyle brand based in the U.S. One of the ways we've seen the plant and all of its iterations, including CBD, be destigmatized over the last few years is by connecting it to the health and wellness of people. Americans are certainly much more open to it than ever before, having spent more on legal cannabis in 2022, get this, than on chocolate or beer. That's a lot of weed. People
of weed.
like chocolate and people really like beer. 16%.
I like all three.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of money on all three.
Yes. 62% would prefer to smoke weed over taking pharmaceuticals. I'll put my hand up to that.
Me too.
I love traveling to New York, Los Angeles, or Toronto for work as I can legally purchase what I need, says Tina, a global director who has ADHD. In the UK, however, I'm made to feel like a criminal. Currently, marijuana is illegal on that side of the pond. It's a Class B drug, and the maximum penalty for possession is 5 years in prison.
Oh.
Sadly, it seems current party leaders on both sides of the political spectrum are hard on drugs. Home Secretary Suella Braverman has suggested the drug be reclassified to a Class A, while Labor leader Keir Starmer recently ranted about the smell of cannabis ruining lives. Weed has been a great help for me in many aspects of my life, says Luna, another person who self-medicates with weed. It has helped me in managing my racing and obsessive thoughts and with my feelings of emptiness and boredom in a healthy way. Not only does Luna suffer from ADHD symptoms, but she also has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Due to previous issues with addiction, her therapist did not want to give her the typical amphetamine like Adderall or Ritalin. So for Luna, weed was a welcome alternative. Although she's currently self-medicating, she adds that she would be more than happy to go legit if the process of doing so was more straightforward. Medical marijuana has been legal in the UK since 2018, but getting your hands on it isn't easy. Dr. Niraj Singh, a consultant psychiatrist who has been prescribing cannabis in the UK for over 3 years, has seen an increase in those with ASD, autism spectrum disorders, or ADHD, seeking prescriptions. As of March 2023, there are roughly 20,000 people in the UK using medical cannabis, but there should be so many more. One major issue is simply the fact that there's a massive backlog of people seeking a diagnosis for ASD or ADHD. And as people face years of waiting, it's like years, literally, of waiting for a diagnosis, it makes sense that they're turning to unorthodox ways of medicating in the meantime. Thanks to the internet, there are a lot of more people who are aware that autism and ADHD don't look a certain way, says Eve. Since awareness of neurodivergence has grown, so too have waiting lists. As waiting lists for ADHD assessments are up to 7 years long, it's natural that alternative sources of support have risen. 7 years, because they are their medical in the UK it's free, right? It's public health, all medicine.
I
right?
think so, yeah.
Yeah, so, and you have to wait. We had a friend from the UK, and she would say you'd have to wait for years to see a doctor if you had something wrong. It was very, very a long process. So anyway, we are witnessing a healthcare crisis at the moment in this country, with waiting lists hitting record highs and demand for specialist care soaring, adds John Robson, CEO and founder of Medica, one of the UK's leading medical cannabis clinics. ADHD and ASD, therefore, remain largely undiagnosed conditions for which it is hard to get a hold of medication without formal recognition. Even when patients do have a diagnosis, it's not so easy to get your hands on cannabis prescriptions. The UK's National Health Service can prescribe it, but most patients are forced to go private due to their government doing very little to inform or educate doctors on changing perceptions in the medical field. Additionally, the UK government has not put into place any structures that would actually facilitate accessibility. Under UK law, a prescription for cannabis can only be initiated by a specialist consultant on the General Medical Council register, explains Robson. Patients are eligible to get a medical cannabis prescription. Get this is ridiculous. Okay, they can only get a medical cannabis prescription if they have tried 2 traditionally prescribed medications that have not worked. Well, that's just bullshit. One, once you have proof of this, including your medical records and your patient history, then you will need to speak with a specialist or be referred to a specialist. Essentially, it's a long, drawn-out process, so it's easy to see why some people choose just to hit up their dealer in spite of the risk that comes with it. The problem is, though, when self-medicating, what you buy is unregulated. You might think you're smoking Super Lemon Haze, which is a great strain for ADHD, when in reality, you're smoking something with a much higher level of THC that could induce paranoia, anxiety, or psychosis. Eve no longer self-medicates. She stopped once she discovered Sapphire Clinics, the UK's first private medical cannabis clinic, and now she gets her weed prescribed. The main difference is that I know exactly what I'm smoking every time. I know how it's going to make me feel, and being autistic, you can imagine the comfort that gives me, she says. Activists, advocates, and patients have fought to change the outdated perspectives on this powerful plant. Its history is intrinsically linked to the LGBTQ+ community, who fought for cannabis access for HIV and AIDS patients decades ago. We know it can be helpful to those going through chemotherapy. Recent research even suggests that THC and CBD can slow cancer's growth, reduce the spread, and kill certain types of cancer cells. There's a reason people have been using cannabis for its medicinal qualities for centuries. There's still a long way to go, though, in terms of decriminalization, legalization, and improving access to medical cannabis. But the writing is on the wall, as more and more research suggests that cannabis has the potential to transform the lives of neurodivergent people. That's amazing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great article. It's just crazy to me still in Great Britain. It's not even like fully like at least medicinal throughout the whole country in the UK. Just crazy. Activists in another Texas city kick off effort to decriminalize cannabis with signature gathering underway in Lubbock. Lubbock, Lubbock. Lubbock, Texas. Go get those
Isn't that
signatures.
a song?
Could be.
Kenny Rogers.
You would know
I'm
better
not
than
going
I
to try
do.
to sing it. It's in my brain.
Hey, find it.
Lubbock, Texas,
Find it.
with Willie and the boys. I'm going to find it.
Find it. South Dakota Attorney General releases final summary from medical marijuana repeal initiative that GOP activists wants on 2024 ballot. Oh my God. South Dakota, you just keep on trying to stop it and do whatever you can. Don't remember, I didn't forget, it passed both medicinally and recreationally. You took the rec away and you let med happen, and now you're trying to stop it again. You guys all see, you're oh my gosh. You don't get it. Minnesota Indian Tribe plans to launch marijuana food truck to expand businesses across the state because there's still only one dispensary in Minnesota, even though they went fully recreational August 1st. Most of the licenses haven't even been started or given out yet. So, but this Indian reservation has theirs, and they're doing a really good business, seeing about 300 people a day. But now they're going to bring the cannabis to you in food trucks. I think it's great. And another thing I read too is a GOP congressman in North Carolina threatens an Indian tribe with loss of federal funding over marijuana legalization. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians were trying to open up a dispensary on their land too and grow up on their land. And it kind of, I think we read about it too. It kind of got voted down, but they're still going to maybe vote it in. But now this GOP congressman is telling them, well, if you do that, don't forget, you'll lose your federal funding. This is my opinion on that. You can control your own destiny and not have to take a fucking friggin' dime from the federal government because they can't do anything to your land that you own, that you're surrounded by. So you can either be controlled by federal government and the money they give you, or make your own money, control your own destiny, because North Carolina is not going to go medical probably for another couple of years, and you will own the market. If you do it right, You can make it a cannabis destination. You have the casinos already, I believe, and you can actually make it a cannabis experience at the casinos too, and make bazillion dollars and tell the federal government to go scratch, as my mom would say. Ma 420. Michigan marijuana industry is now the top market in the nation. Crazy. They did 270 million last week. They're going to do close to 2 billion. They got a lot going on in that state. But it's pretty good to see a Midwest state just.
Yeah, right.
It's great. Go Midwest. I posted this. It was a couple different articles, though, what I read about. But Doctors for Cannabis Regulation call for universal weed symbol. And the only reason why I'm talking about this is because I don't like the weed symbol they used. It's black and yellow.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, why don't they just make it
like
a green cannabis leaf?
Right.
I mean, everybody's familiar.
Green
Why,
and
why
white.
create
Green
something
and white.
new?
Green and white.
Right.
Green leaf with the white background.
Everybody
And
knows what it is. You
Instead
don't
of
have to go
making
out
it look
teaching
like
anybody.
a yield sign,
So
it means like danger, stay away. I mean, that's what it looks like, and they want to.
Yeah,
They
it looks
want
like
to
a
put this.
biohazard.
Yes, and they want to put this on all the bottles and everything that's been. I think it's
As a standardized
yes
cannabis symbol, right?
right. But I just think that they could do better. Colorado's marijuana tax brought in more revenue than alcohol or cigarettes last year, new state reports. Damn. So it's more than beer and chocolate, alcohol and cigarettes. That's great. This is great because in New York, since they still can't get their act together and open up dispensaries, now a women-led cannabis farmers market opens up in Columbia County. Good for you. Go women. I love it. It's amazing. Sell, make some money. You don't need dispensaries if you do it right. Cannabis landscape updates. Nebraska law enforcement probes sales of hemp-derived cannabis products exceeding THC limit. Arkansas AG asserts state law supersedes federal law in challenge to hemp-derived Delta-8 THC ban. Maryland cannabis legalization forces local hemp companies to shut down. California launches a $48 million community reinvestment grants for marginalized communities. And a global coalition urges adoption for that universal symbol. So this is not just the United States. This is going to be a global symbol. Make it look cool. Make it look appealing. Don't make it so people are scared about it. This is going to be a global symbol for cannabis. Ugh. Give the plant a break, will you? Ohio will vote on recreational cannabis legalization in November. They got the votes. Remember I said they needed like 6,000 votes. They got another 127,000 total votes to help add to that. Go Ohio, because you're gonna kill it. You're not gonna lose all that tax revenue that everybody else is going. So just don't make it as whacked as your fucking medical laws, because they sucked the first couple of years, and I think they still do. Got to make sure you do it right. Federal employment opens up doors for cannabis users with the Cure Act. Do you know why?
Why?
Because cannabis is federally illegal, right? You have a lot of people that live in legal states, right, that work for the federal government.
Yeah.
And it kind of contradicts the laws. Well, I live in a legal state, but I work for the federal government, but I live in a legal state, and I want to use it medically or recreationally, and now you're telling me I can't work for you, so they're trying to fix this. You just make it legal.
Just make it legal.
Take it off the D1. Put it on the no list. Let it be. Religious people.
Yeah.
We know a lot of them.
Yeah.
I've smoked a lot of weed with a lot of religious people. I've smoked a lot of weed with a lot of spiritual people. But
Yep.
there's
a difference.
There's some religious people that are less likely to use marijuana.
Yeah.
Why, Mrs.
Well,
Weedman?
before I go into that, here it is. Listen. Lukenbach, Texas. It was Waylon Jennings.
There you go. That's Waylon Willie, right? Singing together?
Waylon and Willie.
There you go.
Yeah, it was Lukenbach. So the article had nothing to do with this song.
I know. But you were close.
I was close. It
You were
made me think of a
close.
song. I had to
But
share
Waylon Jennings and Willie.
That's a good song.
It's a good song.
That's
so,
a very good song. All right.
So tell us about this religious people.
Yeah. Why religious people are less likely to smoke or use, marijuana. Well, it's not just cannabis. Religious people are generally opposed to alternative medicine compared to those who self-identify as being spiritual. Although the importance of religion in the lives of Americans is on the decline, for people who still do attend religious services, they say they're optimistic about the future of their house of worship. A new report from the Public Religion Research Institute gives insight into the thinking of faith-based citizens. Today, just 16% of Americans surveyed say religion is the most important thing in their lives. That's down from 20% a decade ago, and according to a report published in the Journal of Drug Issues, those living a religious life tend to exhibit lower rates of medical and recreational marijuana use. The researchers found the authority perspective suggests that religious involvement may also deter substance use by encouraging a conformity to societal norms and adherence to laws. Those who are active within religious institutions may favor conformity through fear of divine retribution, internalized moral codes, guilt avoidance, and the social context of obedient peer networks. If religious individuals are more deferential to authority than others, they may be more likely to obey laws prohibiting illicit substance use and the use of prescription drugs in the medically prescribed manner. The study reveals it's not just cannabis, though. Religious people are generally opposed to alternative medicine compared to those who may be spiritual. One theory suggests religious individuals may disapprove of certain medical technologies in part because they see potential value in suffering, as compared to non-religious individuals who tend to view suffering as something to stop as quickly as possible. Of course, this is not the first study to find religion and marijuana don't mix. A 2016 study found people who believe the Bible is God's word were 58% less likely to also support marijuana legalization. According to study author Daniel Christosek, a graduate student in sociology at the University of Nevada. In 2018, a Pew Research poll found only 38% of white evangelical Christians support marijuana legalization, while 8 out of 10 Americans who do not affiliate with an organized religion support cannabis reform. So, interesting. This journalist had written a very similar article that Mr. Weedman sent my way that he wrote 5 years ago. And that one talked about the level of your engagement with your church community, and also how effectively the more involved you were with your church life, the less open you were to cannabis use. So there's some weight in that. And yeah, it's just interesting.
Well, I mean, looking at some stuff too in that article that I was reading outside of this, because it's kind of controversial a little bit when it comes to religious and cannabis, but cannabis is a sacred plant in some religions. And the use of cannabis in religious sacraments predates written history, and evidence of its place as a sacred plant can be found in most ancient religions, including Buddhism, Shintoism, Sufism, and Christianity, and among the Bantu, Pygmy, Zulu, and Hottentot tribes of Africa when it comes to religion. So also it's been written, some stuff has been, nothing in the Bible talks about weed being a sin.
It doesn't. Well, it does talk about plants. There's reference to like a medicinal plant in the Bible.
Well, I mean, we've been using medicinally for over 10,000 years. Right? And over 2,500 years. And in India, Africa, and China, they've used it. So to me, I think it's some people that might have had a little bit of like drugs are bad McKay talks, to where, yes, they're religious people, but it's been all drugs are bad. Mm-hmm. And
they're not looking, they really don't understand the medical qualities of the plant. And
haven't read in the Bible where it says that these plants are, because I remember people saying, growing up in churches and saying that, when we heard about cannabis was the devil made cannabis. That's not true. The devil doesn't create, the devil destroys. God, if you believe in God and you believe what the Bible teaches, you believe God created everything. So if God created everything, why is cannabis bad?
That's one perspective.
No. If you believe in the Bible, and the Bible is the word, the truth.
But then that's like saying if God created everything, God created cancer. So why is cancer bad? That's what I'm saying. There's just different perspectives. And there's just people who, and there's also different sectors of religion that, like, we grew up Roman Catholic.
Yes.
In the Roman Catholic Church, it's no big deal to leave church and have a beer or a Bloody Mary or a drink. Like, drinking is not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. But drugs are. Cannabis would be, right? And then you go to, say, maybe like an evangelical church or Baptist or something that's a little bit more very strongly Bible-based, and there is no altering of the body and mind at all. You don't tattoo, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't and do a single drug, but medications are okay. And then that opens up that whole can of worms of why is it like, what's the difference? If you look at the chemistry of cannabis and the chemistry of a medication, they're both medicines. Like, it's just a chemical equation or something like that. I don't know. I'm going down
a rabbit hole.
paths,
I'd love to have. I'm going to say the old bar joke that you hear: a priest, a rabbi, and a preacher all walk into a dispensary together.
Mm-hmm. I follow this awesome
and that's
guy.
actually not a real joke. It's always walk into a bar together. That was the running joke. The three of them walk into a bar together. Here's the deal: a priest, a rabbi, and a preacher all walk into a dispensary together. What do you think they're getting? So to me, it's like, let's dig into this some more. If there's some people out there that that have been told this for so long, and you think cannabis is from the devil, I'd love to talk to you about it. If you're and hear your opinion, you're welcome to come on the show and talk. But you're gonna have to have some value in why this plant is evil to you or shouldn't be used. You better have some valued opinions, because I'd like to bring some other people to go against you on that. So not only just me.
Sounds like a challenge, Mr. Weedman.
It's not a challenge. It's just
a pleasant challenge.
Yes, just a talk. Yeah. It's just a talk. Everyone has their opinion. That's
right.
So my mom used to say, Ma Weed would always say, everyone's got opinions like everyone's got asses and elbows, right? So, international news. Israel police seized record 137,000 cannabis plants in the largest operation ever. Ooh, that sucks. Dropping prices and heavy tax burden will mean what will it mean for the cannabis industry? And with high taxes and saturated market and few options, some of Canada's legal cannabis producers are struggling. When the federal government legalized the sale of recreational cannabis in October 2018, retail locations popped up one after another as investors and entrepreneurs dove into the new industry that was highlighted as the next big thing for the economy. The market initially flourished with products in high demand and short supply. However, prices are falling and the industry is taking a hit, and licensed producers and retailers are now looking for new ways to improve their bottom line. Yeah, don't overproduce. Like, how about like the 1.3 billion grams you overproduced? Oh, wait, that was my outside voice. We are facing declines in prices on products. It's a race to the bottom at the moment and really can't sustain itself. Tyler Giovanni, co-owner of Oceanic Relief. There's a federal excise tax on cannabis that $1 per gram. And Giovanni said products prices can't keep up. While they're still being charged $1 a gram, even if their prices per gram were around 10, now they were sub $5, she said. Over 50% of the $5 gram is going towards government, whether it's excise federally or local taxes. So some people are saying it's a grim outlook. One of this companies saying they pay anywhere between $800,000 to $1 million to the federal government per month. Per month. Ooh. They said about a third of the wholesale revenue. Oh, my gosh. When you look at other comparative industries with alcohol and tobacco, it's far less than that, and the massive stress on many organizations. So there's 905 license holders at the moment, and suspect 60% of them will go bankrupt and not be in the industry over the next year to 18 months, and it's already happening. Ooh. It still amazes me, and I just said this the other day on the Grow Hour show. For all of the money the government spent on across the world, war on drugs, burning stuff down, burning drugs down, whatever, arresting people, hundreds of millions of hours and dollars and court fees and all this stuff. You don't deserve any of this money. None of it. No, maybe 1% of the tax revenue. That's all you deserve. But everything that you took tax-wise from the people of this world, that their hard-earned money, you should be taking that tax revenue that you're stealing from the businesses that are struggling or not struggling and give it back to the people first. You owe the American taxpayer alone close to about $1.8 trillion from the drugs on war. And we'll never see that back. Wasted. We could have used that to feed and home and teach and better whatever. So you deserve none of it. And around the world, too. You should be paying your people back. It's illegal to sell or possess cannabis in Japan, but it's legal to get high on it. And here's why. In Japan, you can be jailed up to 7 years for possessing cannabis. 7 years for possessing cannabis. But getting high on it isn't a crime at all. And neither is possessing, trading, or consuming a number of synthetic cannabinoids designed to mimic the same high, just without THC. A green rush is sweeping across Asia, a region traditionally known for its harsh drug laws, with some countries embracing partial or full legalization in the recent years, and others doubling down on strict prohibition. Japanese lawmakers, according to political observers, are gearing up to debate the country's own cannabis laws during the next parliamentary session, which is expected to convene as early as October. But while there is some hope among cannabis advocates for greater acceptance of the use of medical purposes, it's widely anticipated that lawmakers will aim to crack down on recreational use, including by closing existing loopholes in the law. Doing almost anything with cannabis is a crime, but consuming it isn't. Japan has a long tradition of cannabis farming, with hemp used in the garment making, as food seasoning, and for religious practices. Aha, as we just talked about. But the tradition came under scrutiny after World War II, and U.S. occupying forces called for a ban on cannabis. The result was the 1948 Cannabis Control Act, which outlawed most parts of the hemp plant, but not its mature stems and seeds, which were at the time believed to contain no psychoactive chemicals. The act today criminalizes the import, export, production, sale, possession, and research of marijuana, but says nothing of consumption. The reason for this omission is cited by authorities and local media is to avoid penalizing farmers who may inadvertently get high from inhaling their cannabis crops. THC is banned, but synthetic cannabinoids aren't. Despite its unequivocally anti-weed stance, Japan has struggled to rein in the green business on the ground. Most notably, CBD products made from the cannabis stalks and seeds that do not contain THC, which were allowed to be imported into Japan. Is legalization on the table? While all signals point to the coming crackdown on recreational cannabis, Japan appears to be cautiously warming up to the potential benefits of cannabis for medicinal purposes. So starting some trials with the Epidiolex and a couple of the other drugs that are made for medical purposes. So we'll see what happens if it does. It's just really weird to me because China, Japan, all of Asia is where cannabis and hemp got its start. And it's so... Thailand is the only exception right now. Maybe a few others that do some medical stuff are the only exception, but everybody else still scrutinizes it, beats it, and doesn't let people have this. It's very, very, it's like scratch my head. Very weird. So, court, Swiss police can't seize small amounts of cannabis for personal use. The possession of small amounts of quantities of weed, if for personal use rather than resale, is already not treated as a criminal offense in Switzerland. However, last Monday, the highest court in Switzerland clarified that such many amounts are also not liable for seizure. That is, if there is no proof of any crime having taken place, and if the user is not nabbed while actually consuming cannabis. Judges were ruling specifically on the case of a man who had been caught with several grams of weed and hash in Canton, St. Gallen in 2019. Police took it away, suspecting the man of having brought them in from Austria. However, as of no proof was found, the man should be entitled to get his stuff back, his stash back, the court ruled. That's awesome. However, for those caught with possession of under 10 grams, these fines are only imposed if they're caught consuming it, in which the case the drugs can also be still be confiscated. So you can smoke, just don't get caught. We watched the show a couple Sundays ago with Sanjay Gupta. I think we kind of talked about it too. It was about seniors with cannabis. This was a good article Mrs. Weedman is going to talk about here, just weed for seniors, and then some of the other shows that he has done over the last 10 years, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Tell us about it, Mrs. Weedman.
Well, for a decade, Sanjay Gupta has been the voice of America's understanding of cannabis. Is it safe? Is it good for us? Is it okay for children? How about seniors? With each episode in this ongoing series, Gupta's opinions have shifted from anti to supportive. This has impacted the hearts and minds of voters and lawmakers. For example, no one had heard of Charlotte Figge or the Stanley Brothers before the original Weed special was broadcast, as she was just another child among many worldwide whose life was improved drastically by the availability of cannabinoid-based medicine. Once the original episode aired, CBD was touted as a medicinal compound separate from the demonized THC molecule that was said to be only for getting high. There was a failure to include the fact that the medicine these kids were taking also contained small but necessary amounts of THC. Without its presence, it just doesn't work as well. The media exposure was used by the Stanleys and their team to promote the message that CBD is good and THC is bad. This began a cascade of events going from state to state and country to country selling this myth. Would there have been a farm bill that included CBD without this? The next Weed special highlighted the injustices and frustrations experienced by Dr. Sue Sisley as she attempted to study the effects of cannabis on PTSD experienced by veterans. The government-controlled crop available at the time for serious study was of poor quality and not reflective of what consumers were using to treat their conditions. After this showing, a shift occurred, allowing licensed farmers to grow plants for the purpose of scientific investigation, no longer limiting scientists to the inferior Mississippi University crops. Jumping to his most recent special, which aired on August 6th, Gupta directed his spotlight on the use of cannabis by seniors. I think this episode is just going to blow things up because they're saying each of his episodes have directly impact because it's a huge... you're touching a huge bit of our population.
And we read on the last show or the last two shows that seniors are the fastest growing of cannabis, new cannabis users.
Yep. So he directed his spotlight on the use of cannabis by seniors. Sue Taylor has been a vocal advocate for seniors and has helped bring clarity on how to get started for many elderly consumers. And we are grateful for her work and hope she will continue for many years to come. She is the perfect example of when you know better, you do better. I listened to The Promise of Cannabis as We Age by Sanjay Gupta, where he interviewed a non-agenarian, someone who is between the age of 90 and 99. And that person has found relief from his negative thoughts that were keeping him from sleeping peacefully. He also because he used cannabis, he also spoke to Dr. Aaron Greenstein, a geriatric psychiatrist who shared a personal story of his grandmother and her flashback moments to Auschwitz in her final weeks of life. Isn't that terrible? The pharmaceuticals could not help for more than a few hours, but 5 milligrams of THC was a solution. Amazing. Now, I am clear that cannabis is not the best answer in some situations. However, for sleep and chronic pain, there is no better option on the market. If there are no dangerous drug-on-drug interactions, please tell me a pharmaceutical that works better for sleep and chronic pain. How about anxiety? These 3 diagnoses, or as I like to call them, the cannabis trifecta, are far better addressed with cannabinoids than pharmaceuticals. According to the CDC, 11.2% of seniors live with anxiety, 30.8% with chronic pain, and 50% have trouble getting to sleep or remaining asleep. These are significant percentages of our aging population. The reason why Dr. Greenstein is hesitant to prescribe His reasons were outdated and showed a lack of scientific inquiry. He says he doesn't know how to dose it, and he doesn't know how to dose, and he does know how to dose prescription drugs. Really, though? Does one dose of Ambien work for everybody, or does it require titration? How about switching drugs from one to another when one fails? How many seniors have a medicine cabinet filled with half-empty bottles from drugs that didn't live up to their promise? The bottom line is that Sanjay Gupta has the power to sway many important minds. I wish he would have presented a doctor who would have taken the time to read the preponderance of evidence supporting the value of cannabis in alleviating suffering in seniors. Yeah, it's like he's saying, like Sanjay Gupta is starting to go from being his presentation about cannabis being more like coming from an angle of being against it, right? And convince me why it's good.
Right.
To now he's kind of on board with it, but he's still bringing in advocates of pharmaceuticals.
Right.
It's like maybe as he progresses and he gets more and more on board with it, at some point he's got to see the reality of what cannabis is and what it does for people, and then start bringing on people that advocate for it, not these typical doctors who don't really know anything about it. So,
I agree with that 100% on that one. I mean, he should be having people that have studied the plant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would have been great if he got a chance to interview Dr. Michelin before he passed away.
Yeah.
That would have been something special.
Amazing.
If he would have went to Israel and all of those doctors that have been studying it for years, since the 60s to today, that's where he should go. Mm-hmm. Some of the best research is coming out of Israel when it comes to cannabis plant. And that's where he should be going to really, truly understand the plant. Here in the United States, there's some, but nowhere near what they have done over there. So that's just, that would be smart. And go to the real sources of who study it. Not people have studied hearsay and old
information,
old info that aren't doing new research. Yeah. Like it said at the end of that article, do better.
Do better. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So great show, Mrs. Weedman. That's the end.
That's it.
You got anything else to say?
Well, it is it's shitty weather here in Chicago. Let's just say it. That's all there is to it. It's like 110 degrees. So if you're here in Chicago, stay cool. This weekend is going to be beautiful. We're going to be back to the 70s and 80s. So ride it out. Stay in your house. Put on a fan. I'm a kid who grew up. Well, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm far from being a kid, but I was a kid.
No air
with
conditioning
no air
in the house,
conditioning,
and it was
and
hot
you
like
migrated
this.
through the house trying to find a cold spot to sleep at night. Bathtubs, kitchen floor, basement.
Oh, I remember.
You were all over the place.
The basement was always the place to be.
Wherever you're at, just smoke some weed. It'll all be better.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated
during this heat. Get some protection. There's always cooling houses now and places you can go to keep cool. And moderate your temperature too in your house. Don't drop it down to 65 because it's 100 degrees outside. If you kept your temperature at 70 all day, you'd be just fine. Save some power grid for some other people.
We've got our thermostat at 75.
Yeah, we keep it at 75.
But we've got good shady trees.
Yeah. So keep cool out there, everybody. Smoke some weed. Have a good one. We love you out there. Thanks for listening. As Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puffing away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome, long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.